The marketplace on Nexus Prime Station buzzed with activity like it did every morning. Traders from a dozen different worlds set up their stalls, selling everything from exotic fruits to advanced technology. The air smelled like a mix of strange spices and recycled oxygen. Captain Ji-Woo Kim walked his usual patrol route through the crowded corridors, his hand resting casually near his sidearm. He had been stationed here for 2 years now. Most days passed without incident. Near the center plaza, a human family browsed the merchant stalls. Little Hannah Lee held her mother's hand, her eyes wide with wonder at all the alien creatures around her. She was 7 years old, visiting the station for the first time while her parents completed a trade deal. In her free hand, she clutched a small toy shuttle that her father had bought her that morning. The toy slipped from her fingers. It clattered across the smooth floor, bouncing toward the main walkway. Hannah pulled free from her mother's grip and chased after it, giggling as it rolled away. She didn't see the massive figure approaching from the opposite direction. Enforcer Vriltkar stood nearly 3 meters tall, his thick armor making him look even larger. He was Krethian, a species known for their military strength and their rigid sense of hierarchy. To him, humans were barely civilized newcomers to the galaxy, hardly worth noticing. He strode through the marketplace with the confidence of someone who knew everyone would move out of his way. Hannah grabbed her toy and spun around, bumping directly into Vriltkar's armored leg. The impact barely moved him, but it surprised her, and she stumbled backward. She looked up at the towering alien and smiled nervously. "Sorry, mister," she said in her small voice. Vriltkar looked down at the child. His face twisted with disgust. A primitive creature had dared to touch him with her filthy hands. In Krethian culture, physical contact from a lesser species was an insult. His pride burned hot in his chest. Without hesitation, he swung his arm in a wide arc. The back of his armored hand struck Hannah across the face. The sound of the impact echoed through the marketplace like a gunshot. The little girl's body flew through the air, tumbling several meters before crashing into a merchant stall. She lay motionless on the ground, blood pooling beneath her head. Everything stopped. The busy marketplace fell silent. Aliens and humans alike stared in shock at what had just happened. Hannah's mother screamed and ran toward her daughter. Gi-Woo was already moving, his training taking over. He sprinted across the plaza, his weapon drawn. "Freeze!" He shouted at Vriltkar. "Get on the ground now." The Krethian enforcer looked at the approaching human with something like amusement. He made no move to comply. 2 other council enforcers stepped forward, blocking Gi-Woo's path. "Stand down, human," one of them said. Enforcer Vriltkar acted within his authority under council law. Gi-Woo's blood ran cold. He just attacked a child. A 7-year-old child. The juvenile made physical contact without permission, the enforcer replied calmly. Section 47 of Council Law permits disciplinary action for uncivilized conduct by members of developing species. The force used was appropriate. By now, medical personnel had arrived. They carefully loaded Hannah onto a stretcher. Her face was crushed on one side, her jaw clearly broken. Blood still seeped from her ears. Her mother rode with her to the medical bay, sobbing uncontrollably. Ji-Woo felt his hands shaking. He had served in Earth's military before becoming a diplomatic officer. He had seen combat, but this was different. This was a child who had been playing moments ago. He was a calm man, known for his diplomatic skills and his patience. But when he saw the security footage, his face went pale. He watched the replay 3 times, each viewing making his expression harder. "I want him arrested immediately," Park said to the station commander. The commander, an elderly alien with too many eyes, shook his head slowly. "I understand your distress, Ambassador, but Enforcer Vriltkar violated no laws." The contact was initiated by the human child. His response was within acceptable parameters. Acceptable parameters? Park's voice was dangerously quiet. "He nearly killed her. Juveniles of all species must learn proper conduct around their betters. This is how discipline is maintained throughout civilized space." Park stood up from his chair. He was not a tall man, but something in his posture made the station commander lean back slightly. "I am formally requesting the immediate arrest and extradition of Enforcer." Vriltkar to stand trial under human. Jurisdiction for assault of a minor? Request. Denied. Then I am informing Earth's government of this situation. They will want to handle this through official channels. The station commander waved a manipulator appendage dismissively. As you wish. But the Council's decision will not change. Tell your government that this is how we maintain order among younger species. Perhaps this incident will help humanity learn its place. The security footage had already been transmitted to Earth through the automated news networks. Within an hour, every human in the solar system had seen it. The image of a massive armored alien striking a small child spread across social media, news broadcasts, and government channels. The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Ambassador Park received an emergency transmission from Earth. President Seung-min Choi appeared on the screen, her face grave. Behind her stood military officials and government ministers. Ambassador Park, what is the Council's official response? They claim it was legal under their laws, Madam President. They refused to arrest him. There was a long silence on the other end. When the President spoke again, her voice was ice. Inform the Council that they have 72 hours to turn over Enforcer Vriltkar to human custody. If they refuse, we will withdraw from the Galactic Council and take appropriate action, Madam President. They will not take that threat seriously. Earth's registered military assets are... I know what we registered with them, Ambassador. I also know what we actually have. Make sure they understand this is not a negotiation. We want justice for that child, and we will have it one way or another. The transmission ended. Park sat in his office, staring at the blank screen. In 30 years of diplomatic service, he had never heard a human leader speak with such cold determination. He thought about little Hannah Lee, currently in surgery while doctors tried to repair her shattered skull and broken face. He thought about Vriltkar, who had already returned to his regular duties as if nothing had happened. Then he stood up, straightened his uniform, and went to deliver Earth's ultimatum to the Galactic Council. Behind him on his desk, the security footage played on loop. A small girl chasing a toy, a massive figure striking her down. Over and over again, the galaxy was about to learn something important about humans. They were patient. They were diplomatic. They followed rules and protocols. But there were lines that could not be crossed without consequences. And harming their children was the brightest. Boldest line of all, the Galactic Council chamber was a massive dome that could hold representatives from 500 different species. Today it was packed full. News of the human ultimatum had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to see how the Council would respond. Most expected entertainment? Humans were known as a minor species. It's barely worth the Council's attention. High Arbiter Thelanox floated at the center of the chamber in his containment field. He was ancient beyond measure, having guided the Council for thousands of years. His species had evolved past physical forms centuries ago, existing now as pure energy contained in carefully designed fields. When he spoke, his voice resonated through every translator in the room. The human delegation demands we surrender one of our enforcers for a simple disciplinary action. This is absurd. They threaten military action with their fleet of 200 registered vessels. He paused, and something like laughter rippled through his energy field. Our combined forces number over 50,000 warships. Perhaps the humans need a reminder of their place in the galactic hierarchy. Ambassador Park stood in the human delegation area. Beside him was Admiral Bora Shin, who had arrived from Earth on an emergency transport. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had served in Earth's military for 40 years. High Arbiter, Park said formally. Earth's position is clear. Enforcer Vriltkar assaulted a child. Under any reasonable legal system, this is a crime. We demand justice. You demand? Thelanox's energy field pulsed with amusement. Young species often confuse requests with demands. Let me educate you on reality. Your species joined the Council 30 years ago. You have contributed little to galactic civilization. Your military is laughable. Your technology is primitive. And yet you dare to threaten us? Admiral Shin stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. We are not threatening. We are warning. There is a difference. A warning requires the ability to follow through. You have none. However, the Council is merciful. We will offer compensation to the injured child's family. 500 credits should suffice. Park closed his eyes briefly. He had known this would be the response, but hearing it still hurt. 500 credits, the price of a cheap meal on most stations. That was what they valued a human child's life. The offer is rejected, he said. You have 72 hours. The council chamber erupted in chatter. Several species representatives vocalized their disbelief at human arrogance. A few remained quiet, watching carefully. They had studied human history more thoroughly than others. They remembered that humans had a saying about sleeping giants. 60 hours later, the first human warships began appearing. They came through slipspace at predetermined coordinates across Council territory. First in ones and twos, then in dozens, then in hundreds. Every military tracking station in Council space suddenly lit up with new contacts. Human ships. Lots of human ships. At first, the Council thought it was a sensor malfunction. Humans only had 200 ships. But the sensors were working perfectly. The ships were real, and they kept coming. Fleet Admiral Biora Shin stood on the bridge of the EDS Righteous Fury, the flagship of Earth's actual military fleet. Around her, the crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Status report, she ordered. All fleet elements are in position, Admiral. 30 battle groups deployed. Total ship count, 2,400 combat vessels. All systems green. Shin nodded. She opened a channel to all human ships and to the Galactic Council's main communication network. She wanted everyone to hear this. This is Fleet Admiral Bora Shin of the United Earth Defense Forces. For 30 years, we have been members of the Galactic Council. We registered 200 ships as required by treaty. There's 200 ships. We're our diplomatic escorts, our light patrol vessels, our public face. She paused. What we did not register was our actual military. We are not a trusting species. We learned long ago that showing all your strength to potential enemies is foolish. On Council worlds, millions watched the broadcast. The image showed ship after ship emerging from slipspace, their hulls painted with Earth's blue and white colors. These were not the small patrol craft the Council had seen before. These were warships. True warships, bristling with weapons, their armor thick and their engines powerful. We made a simple request, Shin continued. Justice for an innocent child. You refused. You mocked us. You offered pocket change as if that would satisfy us. So let me be very clear about what happens next. We will find Enforcer Vrilkar. We will take him into custody. We will see justice done. Any individual or government that protects him will be considered hostile. Any military force that attempts to stop us will be engaged and destroyed. High Arbiter. Thelanox appeared on all Council channels. His energy field was pulsing with what might have been anger. You are outnumbered 20 to 1. Stand down immediately or face annihilation. We are prepared for that, Shin replied. Are you? The first test came quickly. Council enforcement fleet of 50 warships moved to intercept human forces near Nexus Prime Station. The fleet commander, a veteran officer named Krelanath, had fought in 3 major wars. He commanded some of the Council's best ships and crews, sent a message to the approaching human vessels. Human ships, you are in violation of Council space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire. The human response was simple. You have one chance. Move aside or be destroyed. Krelanoff laughed. 50 ships against 12 human vessels. The odds were better than 4 to 1. He gave the order to attack. The battle lasted 14 minutes. Human weapons technology was not what the Council expected. Their kinetic cannons fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, punching through shields like they were not there.
Ow.
There. Missiles used AI guidance systems that the Council had banned as too dangerous. Their electronic warfare systems blinded Council sensors and communications, but what shocked Krelanoth most was the tactics. Human ships moved like they had fought together for decades. They focused fire, eliminated targets efficiently, and gave no quarter. When he tried to surrender, they ignored him and kept firing. By the end, all 50 council ships were destroyed. No survivors. The human vessels had taken some damage, but all 12 remained operational. They broadcast the battle footage to the entire galaxy. Admiral Shin's voice came through again. "I told you to move aside. You chose to fight. This is what fighting looks like.
Next time, believe us."
Across the galaxy, military analysts began emergency reviews of human capabilities. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive suddenly began digging into human history. What they found terrified them. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. 10,000 years of continuous conflict. They had developed weapons that could destroy planets. It fought wars that killed hundreds of millions of their own species and kept fighting. They had invented a concept called total war, where entire populations were mobilized for conflict, and they had never, not once, in their violent history, lost a war they truly committed to winning. President Sumen Choi addressed Earth's population from Seoul. Behind her, the city lights glowed in the evening darkness. Citizens of Earth, we did not want this conflict. We asked for justice through proper channels. We were refused. We were mocked. They thought we were weak because we followed their rules and tried to fit into their society. She paused, her expression hard. They forgot that we followed their rules by choice, not because we had to. They forgot that being civilized is not the same as being harmless. Our children are precious to us, every single one of them. And when someone harms our children and shows no remorse, when they laugh at our pain and dismiss our demands for justice, they learn what we really are. The president looked directly into the camera. We are going to war, not for conquest, not for resources, for justice. For a little girl named Hannah Lee who was attacked for no reason except that some alien thought he was better than her. We will see this through to the end. All across Earth, military reservists reported to duty. Shipyards that had been building civilian vessels suddenly revealed they were actually constructing warships. Weapons systems that had been in development were now fully operational. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was angry. Commander Taean Kwan stood on the bridge of the EDS Righteous Fury, watching the tactical display. His ship was one of Earth's newest battleships, equipped with weapons the Council had never seen before. Around him, his crew worked quietly, preparing for their next engagement. They had already fought 3 battles in the past week. They had won all 3. "Sir, we have 15 Council ships approaching," his sensor officer reported. "They are broadcasting surrender signals." Taeyang nodded. This was becoming common. After the early battles, many Council ships simply gave up when they saw human vessels. Open communications. Let's hear what they have to say. The alien captain appeared on screen. He looked nervous, his scales changing color in a way that indicated fear. "Human vessels, we do not wish to fight. We are from the Velen Republic. This is not our war. We were ordered to patrol this sector, but we have no interest in protecting Enforcer Vreltkar." "Then stand aside," Tezang replied. "Power down your weapons and move to the following coordinates. You will remain there until this conflict ends. Any ship that attempts to leave will be destroyed. Any ship that powers up weapons will be destroyed. Are these terms acceptable?" Yes, completely acceptable. Thank you for your mercy," and ended the transmission. Mercy. The word felt strange. They were in the middle of a war, but humans were still following rules. They did not fire on surrendering ships. They did not target civilian areas. They did not use their most terrible weapons. Not yet, anyway. But the galaxy was learning that human restraint should not be mistaken for human weakness. On the research station of Vel Prime, scientist the Jin Han worked frantically through old records. She was human, but she had been living among the Velen people for 5 years, studying their culture. Now her colleagues were asking her to explain what Earth was doing. They could not understand why humans were so angry over one child. "You need to understand human history," she told the assembled Velen scientists. "We have fought wars over everything. Territory, resources, religion, politics, honor. What? The wars we fought hardest, the ones we never compromised on, were wars to protect the innocent." She pulled up historical records on her display. 200 years ago, a human nation kidnapped children from another human nation for forced labor. The world united against them. It took 4 years, Boo. They were completely destroyed. Not just defeated, destroyed, their government erased, their leaders executed, their territory divided, all because they harmed children. But that was humans against humans. One of the Velen scientists objected. This is different. No, the Jinn said firmly. That is exactly the point. It does not matter who the child is or what species. If you harm an innocent, especially a child, humans will come for you. It is built into our culture, our laws, our very thinking. We tell ourselves that the strong protect the weak. That is not just a nice saying to us. It is a core value. She pulled up another file. Do you know how many wars humans have fought? Over 17,000 recorded conflicts in our history. We have killed more of our own species than any disease or disaster. We are very, very good at war. But we also have rules about it. And one of the biggest rules is that children are off limits. The Velen scientists looked at each other nervously. One of them asked the question they were all thinking. Can anyone stop them? I do not know, the Jinn admitted. But I know this. Every time in our history that someone has tried to stop humans from protecting children, it has ended badly for them. Very badly. On the fortress world of Krell, Council General Krozmak was assembling the largest defensive fleet ever created. 10,000 warships from 100 different species. The fortress itself was built into an asteroid, its shields powered by 3 fusion reactors. It was considered the most secure military installation in Council space. That was where they had hidden enforcer Verldkar. They will never breach these defenses, Krozmak told his staff. Let the humans come. Let them waste their ships against our fortress. They will learn that some battles cannot be won. But the younger officers were not so confident. They had been studying the human tactics from previous battles. The reports were disturbing. Sir, one of them said hesitantly, the humans are not fighting the way we expected. Their tactics are very advanced. They use deception. They concentrate force at weak points. They adapt quickly to our responses. They're primitives with stolen technology, Krozmak snapped. Nothing more. Sir, with respect, I reviewed their history. They are not primitives. They have been developing warfare for thousands of years. They have doctrines and strategies we have never considered. And their weapons. What about their weapons? The young officer pulled up a report. They use kinetic weapons, sir? Simple metal projectiles fired at high speed. We thought this was primitive, but the math is frightening. At relativistic speeds, these projectiles carry enormous energy. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Krozmak read the report, his confidence wavering slightly. How much damage can these weapons do? A single hit could penetrate a battleship's hull, sir. Multiple hits would destroy any ship we have. The general set down the report. Then we will destroy them before they can fire. 10,000 ships against their few hundred. The odds are on our side. But the odds were not as simple as numbers. Across Council space, the human fleets were winning battle after battle, not because they had more ships, but because they fought smarter. They used technology the Council had banned or never developed. They employed tactics from thousands of years of warfare. And most importantly, they fought with a unity of purpose that the Council's mixed-species fleets could not match. Commander. Taeyong became famous across the galaxy for a broadcast he made after a battle near the Kethrin colonies. His ship had just destroyed a Council fleet that refused to surrender. The footage showed the burning wreckage of 30 ships drifting in space. People of the Council, he said, his voice calm and clear. You think we are monsters? You think we kill without reason? Let me be very clear. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We do not want to conquer you. We want one thing only. We want the being who struck a 7-year-old child and nearly killed her. We want justice for that child. He paused, letting his words sink in. If you surrender and tell us where Enforcer Vrieltkar is hiding, we will leave you in peace. If you stand aside and let us pass, we will thank you and move on. But if you fight us, if you protect him, if you stand between us and justice, then you will share his fate. We will go through you. Every ship, every station, every defense you have, nothing will stop us." The broadcast ended, but the message spread across every council world. Civilians watched human fleets pass by their planets expecting bombardment, but the humans did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply continued their search. A new understanding was dawning across the galaxy. Humans were not here for conquest. They truly just wanted one person, but they were willing to burn down half the council to get him. More species began to reconsider their positions. The Velen Republic formally withdrew from the conflict. The Court Dominion followed. The Thessan Unity announced they would not interfere with human operations in their territory. Smaller species saw which way the wind was blowing and quietly stopped cooperating with Council military orders. High Arbiter Thelanox watched his great alliance crumbling. Species that had been loyal for centuries were abandoning the fight. His own military commanders were reporting that morale was collapsing. Crews were refusing orders to engage human ships. Some vessels were deserting entirely. Their crews unwilling to die for someone they had never met. He called an emergency session of the council leadership. "We must destroy them," he insisted. "If we let humans win this, our authority is finished. Every minor species will think they can defy us. Then perhaps we should reconsider our position," one of the elder species representatives suggested. "Give them Vriltkar. End this war before it destroys the council entirely." "Never. We do not negotiate with inferiors. We will crush them at Krell Fortress. 10,000 ships will show them the price of defiance." But in the back of his consciousness, Thelanox felt something he had not experienced in thousands of years. He felt doubt, because he had finally reviewed human history himself. He had seen what they had done to their own kind over principles. He had seen the wars that lasted decades, the battles that killed millions, the absolute refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain, and he understood too late that humans were not bluffing. They meant every word they said. They would fight until they won, or until every human ship was destroyed. There was no middle ground, no compromise, no mercy for those who harmed their children. The galaxy was learning a lesson it should have learned 30 years ago. Humans were not just another species. They were something different, something dangerous, something that should have been taken seriously from the beginning. The human fleet arrived at Krell Fortress with 400 warships. It was the largest concentration of Earth's military might in one place. Against them, General Krozmak had assembled 10,000 council vessels. Ships from dozens of species, all united to stop the human advance. Admiral Borashin stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury, studying the tactical display. The numbers were not in her favor, not even close. But numbers were not everything. "General Krozmak is hailing us," her communications officer reported. "Put him through." The Krethian general appeared on screen. He was massive, even for his species, covered in battle scars from a dozen campaigns. "Human Admiral, you are facing the greatest military force ever assembled in this sector. You cannot win. Surrender now, and we will allow your ships to retreat." Shin smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You think we came here to retreat? We came here for one purpose. You have Enforcer Vriltkar inside that fortress. Hand him over, and we leave peacefully. He is under our protection. You will not have him, then we will take him." Krozmak laughed, the sound harsh and grating. 400 ships against 10,000? Your mathematics are as primitive as your culture. You should study our history more carefully, General. We have fought worse odds and won. But let me make you an offer. Any ship that wants to leave can do so now. We will not stop them. This is your last chance. No one is leaving. We will destroy you, and then we will go to Earth and teach your species proper respect. Shin's expression went cold. You threatened our home world. That was a mistake. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. All ships, weapons free. Execute Plan Delta 7. The battle began. Human ships did not charge forward like the Council expected. Instead, they released thousands of small drones, each one barely bigger than a fighter craft. The drones scattered across the battlefield, moving erratically. Council ships opened fire, but the drones were too small and too fast to hit easily. Then the drones began attacking. They slammed into Council ships at high speed, exploding on impact. Each explosion was small, but there were thousands of drones. They overwhelmed point defenses, destroying smaller vessels and damaging larger ones. While the Council fleet was distracted by the drones, human warships moved into position. They fired their kinetic weapons, the metal projectiles moving too fast for the Council's sensors to track properly. Ships exploded as the projectiles tore through their hulls. Energy shields, designed to stop lasers and plasma, did nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Krozmak watched in horror as his numerical advantage nothing. His ships were packed too close together, making them easy targets. Human missiles flew through the gaps in their formation, using advanced guidance systems to find weak points in armor. Every missile that hit meant another ship disabled or destroyed. Break formation, he ordered. Spread out and engage individually. But the Council fleet was not trained to fight this way. The ships collided with each other as they tried to maneuver. Communications were jammed by human electronic warfare. Commanders could not coordinate their forces. The organized defensive fleet became a chaotic mess of ships, trying not to crash into each other. Human vessels pressed their advantage. They moved in small groups, focusing fire on single targets. A Council battleship would find itself facing concentrated fire from 10 human ships at once. Shields would collapse, armor would fail, and the ship would die. Then the human ships would move to the next target. Commander Tae Yong-kwan coordinated his squadron's attacks with precision. They had trained for years for exactly this scenario. Squadron 4, target that carrier. Squadron 7, take out those frigates on the left flank. All units, watch your ammunition counts. Make every shot matter. The battle raged for hours. Both sides took heavy losses. Human ships were tough and well-armed, but they were still outnumbered. Council ships had numbers and respectable firepower. The space around Krell Fortress became a graveyard of burning metal and frozen bodies. But slowly, inevitably, the balance tipped. The Council fleet had more ships, but they fought without coordination or advanced tactics. The human fleet fought like a single organism, each ship supporting the others, its captain knowing exactly what to do. By the 6th hour of battle, General Krozmak knew he was losing. He had started with 10,000 ships. He now had fewer than 3,000 operational. The humans had lost 80 vessels, but the rest fought on with frightening efficiency. All ships fall back to the fortress, he ordered. Let the fortress guns deal with them. The surviving Council ships retreated to positions around the massive asteroid fortress. The fortress itself opened fire, its massive weapons batteries targeting human vessels. Several ships were destroyed immediately, caught by the fortress's powerful energy cannons. But Admiral Shin had anticipated this. All ships, Pattern Echo 9, commence electronic warfare. Human ships began broadcasting powerful jamming signals. The fortress's targeting systems went haywire. Its sensors showed phantom targets everywhere. Its weapons fired at empty space, while human ships maneuvered safely through the chaos. And while the fleet kept the fortress distracted, something else was happening. Colonel Ji-Hin Ro and her team of Ghost Corps. Operators had attached themselves to the hull of a damaged Council medical ship. The ship was allowed through the fortress's shields to dock and offload wounded. The Council never thought to scan for stowaways. 12 human soldiers in stealth. Suits detached from the medical ship once it was inside. They moved through the corridors of the fortress like shadows, their suits bending light around them. Every guard they encountered died silently. Every security camera was hacked or destroyed. It took them 40 minutes to reach the secure bunker, where Vrilkar was hiding. Gihayan placed breaching charges on the door, while her team set up defensive positions. They blew the door and rushed inside. Vrilkar sat in a comfortable room, watching the battle on a monitor. He had been confident that the humans could never reach him. When the door exploded inward and human soldiers poured through, his confidence evaporated. "Enforcer Vriltkar," Jihayan said. Her weapon pointed at his head. "You are under arrest for the assault of a minor. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." She was reading him his rights. Even here, in the middle of a battle in an enemy fortress, humans followed their own laws. Vriltkar tried to run. One of Jihayan's soldiers shot him in the leg with a stun weapon. He collapsed, paralyzed but conscious. They bound his hands and began moving him toward the extraction point. Jihayan activated her communicator. "Package secured. Requesting extraction. Acknowledged," came Admiral Shin's voice. "Begin transmission." The footage began broadcasting across every channel in the galaxy. Millions of beings watched as human soldiers escorted a bound Vriltkar through the fortress corridors. They saw the Krethian enforcer, who had been so proud, now a prisoner. In the command center, General Krozmak saw the broadcast. He realized he had lost. Not just the battle. He had lost everything. The human fleet was still destroying his ships. Human soldiers had infiltrated his fortress. And now, the entire galaxy was watching his failure. "Cease fire," he ordered quietly. All ships cease fire. The shooting stopped. Space fell silent, except for the hiss of venting atmosphere and the crackle of damaged systems. Human ships held their positions, weapons still ready, but no longer firing. Admiral Shin broadcast to the surviving Council forces. "General Krozmak, you fought with honor. Your crews fought bravely. But this is over. We have what we came for. Stand down, and there will be no more killing." It was over. The greatest military engagement of the war ended with human forces victorious. The cost had been high. 80 human ships destroyed. 8,000 human military personnel dead. But on the Council side, 7,000 ships were gone. Over 180,000 dead? Colonel. Jihayan and her team reached a hangar bay where a human assault shuttle was waiting. They loaded Vriltkar aboard and launched, punching through the fortress's shields with the shuttle's powerful engines. Back on Earth, people watched the footage of Vriltkar in custody. They saw him being transported to Nexus's prime station. They saw him being processed through the human justice system, and they knew that their government had kept its promise. High Arbiter, Thelanox appeared on galactic channels one last time. His energy field was dim, defeated. "The Council offers terms of surrender. We request immediate ceasefire negotiations." President Seung-min Choi responded from Earth. "Your request is accepted. Send your diplomats to Geneva. We will discuss terms. But know this. Enforcer Vriltkar will face trial under human law. That is not negotiable. Nothing is negotiable on that point." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity could be diplomatic. They could be patient. They could follow rules and protocols. But when their children were harmed, when justice was denied, they would move heaven and earth to make things right. And they had the capability to back up their convictions with force. The war ended after 47 days. The human fleet returned to Earth's orbit, their ships bearing the scars of battle. Some vessels had to be towed home, too damaged to fly on their own. But they had all achieved their purpose. Justice would be served. On Nexus Prime Station, preparations were being made for the trial. The Council had wanted it held in secret, but humanity refused. Every moment would be broadcast across the galaxy. Every species would see how humans administered justice. Little Hannah Lee was recovering in a hospital on Earth. The doctors had done remarkable work rebuilding her shattered face. She would have scars, but she would live. She would grow up, and she would remember what happened. Though her parents tried to shield her from the worst of it, the trial began on a Tuesday morning. The courtroom was packed with observers from 100 different species. Human news crews set up their equipment. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Min-Soo Park, entered the room, and everyone stood. "Please be seated," she said. "We are here to hear the case of Earth versus Enforcer Vriltkar. The defendant is charged with aggravated assault of a minor use of excessive force and abuse of authority. How does the defendant plead? Vrlkar stood in the defendant's box, surrounded by guards. He had been given a lawyer, a human who specialized in defending difficult cases. The lawyer spoke for him. Not guilty, Your Honor. My client acted according to his training and his understanding of appropriate discipline under council law. This trial will determine if council law supersedes human law on matters of child protection, the judge replied. Prosecution, present your case. For 3 days, the prosecution presented evidence. They showed the security footage. They brought in medical experts who testified about Hannah's injuries. They called witnesses who described the incident. They showed that Vrlkar had used far more force than necessary, that he had struck a child who posed no threat, that he had shown no remorse afterward. The defense argued that Vrlkar had followed his training, that in his culture, physical discipline of unruly juveniles was normal, that he could not be held to human standards when he was not human. The courtroom arguments were broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as human lawyers debated the finer points of law. Many aliens were surprised by the process. They expected quick judgment and execution. Instead, they saw careful consideration of evidence, questioning of witnesses, and genuine debate about responsibility. On the 4th day, the jury reached a verdict. 12 humans, randomly selected from Earth's population, filed back into the courtroom. The judge asked for their decision. We find the defendant guilty on all charges, the jury foreman said. Vrlkar showed no reaction. He had expected this outcome. Judge Park looked at him directly. Enforcer Vrlkar, you have been found guilty of seriously harming a child. In human society, there is no crime more serious. However, this court recognizes that you come from a different culture with different values. This does not excuse your actions, but it is a factor in sentencing. She paused, gathering her thoughts. You are sentenced to life imprisonment in a human correctional facility. You will serve this sentence under conditions that meet galactic standards for humane treatment. You will be eligible for parole after 30 years, provided you show genuine understanding of why your actions were wrong. Many humans thought the sentence was too light. They wanted harsher punishment. But the judge had made her decision based on law, not emotion. That was the human way, but humanity was not done. They also brought charges against the council officers who had refused to investigate the incident. Warrants were issued for their arrest. Some species handed these officers over immediately. Others protested, but eventually complied when human ships appeared in their space. These officers faced trials as well. Most were convicted of criminal negligence. They received sentences ranging from fines to prison time. The galaxy learned that humans held everyone accountable, not just the person who threw the punch, but also those who could have stopped it and chose not to. The peace negotiations in Geneva lasted for weeks. High Arbiter Thelanox did not attend. He had resigned in disgrace, retiring to his species' homeworld. Instead, new council representatives came to bargain with humanity. President Sungmin Choi led the human delegation. She sat across from the council representatives in a conference room overlooking the mountains. Let us be clear about something, she began. We did not fight this war to conquer. We fought for justice. Now we need to ensure this never happens again. The negotiations produced several major changes to galactic law. The Council agreed to eliminate the classification system that labeled some species as developing or lesser. All species would be equal under Council law. Violence against children of any species would be investigated by an independent tribunal. The use of excessive force by law enforcement would be a crime regardless of species or circumstance. More importantly, humanity took a permanent seat on the Council leadership. They would have equal voting power with the elder species, and they would help oversee the new justice system. Some Council species were bitter about these changes. They felt humanity had bullied them into submission, but others recognized that the old system had been corrupt. It had favored the powerful and ignored the weak. Humanity had exposed these flaws in the most dramatic way possible. 3 species that had supported humanity during the conflict were also given elevated status on the Council: the Velen Republic, the Court Dominion, and the Thessan Unity became close allies of Earth. They had seen early on that humanity was right, and they had the courage to act on that belief. Fleet Admiral Borishin gave an interview to Galactic News Networks from her office in Seoul. The journalist, a nervous alien from a species that had opposed humanity, asked the obvious question Admiral many species want to know. Why did humans fight so hard for one child? Your species lost 8,000 military personnel in this war. Was one child's injury worth 8,000 deaths? Shin looked at the journalist with calm eyes. Let me tell you something about human values. We believe that every life matters, not just human lives. Every life. When we see injustice, when we see the strong harming the weak, we cannot just stand by. Our history is full of terrible things we did when we forgot this principle. We have killed millions of our own kind. We have enslaved entire populations. We have committed atrocities that shame us even today. She leaned forward. But we learned from those mistakes. We built systems of justice. We created laws to protect the innocent. We decided that never again would we allow the powerful to harm the weak without consequences. That is not just a policy. It is who we are now. So yes, one child's injury was worth fighting for. Because if we let one child be harmed without seeking justice, we become the monsters we fought so hard to leave behind. The journalist seemed to understand. The interview became one of the most watched broadcasts in galactic history. Years passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be ignored. They were a major power, respected and, by some, feared. But more importantly, they had changed the culture of the Council itself. Other species began adopting human concepts of justice. They created independent courts. They established protections for the vulnerable. They recognized that might did not make right, that power came with responsibility. Vrilkar served his sentence in a human prison. He was treated fairly, given adequate food and shelter, allowed to communicate with his family. Human guards did not abuse him or seek revenge. They simply kept him confined, as the law required. After 5 years, he wrote a book about his experience. It was called The Species I Underestimated. In it, he described his initial contempt for humans, his shock at their military capability, and his gradual understanding of why they valued justice so highly. The book became required reading at the new Council Military Academy, a reminder of what happens when you dismiss others as inferior. 10 years after the war, Admiral Ji-Woo Kim retired from the military. He moved back to Nexus Prime Station with his family. He wanted to be part of rebuilding the community where everything had started. The station was different now. Humans and aliens mixed freely with genuine respect rather than the old hierarchy. One day, he was walking through the marketplace, the same marketplace where Hannah had been struck. A memorial stood there now, a simple statue showing a child reaching out to hold hands with beings from different species. The inscription read, "For every child, every being, every innocent. May we build a galaxy worthy of them?" As Ji-Woo stood reading the inscription, someone approached. It was Hannah Lee, now 17 years old. She had grown into a confident young woman, studying xenopsychology at university. She worked part-time at the station as a youth counselor, helping newly arrived species understand how to live in an integrated society. "Hello, Admiral Kim," she said with a smile. The scars on her face were barely visible now. "Come to visit the memorial?" "I come here sometimes," he admitted. "To remember why we fought. To remember what we achieved. Do you think it was worth it?" She asked. "All those people who died? All that destruction? Just for me?" Gi-Woo looked at her seriously. "It was not just for you, Hannah. It was for every child who would come after you. It was to establish a principle. That innocence must be protected. That justice must be served. That no one, regardless of how powerful they are, can harm the weak without consequences." "I know," she said softly. "I just wish it had not required so much death." "So do we all. But sometimes the only way to stop greater evils is to confront them with force. Your generation will have the benefit of living in a galaxy where such things are less likely to happen. That is worth the price we paid." They stood together in silence for a moment, looking at the memorial. Around them, the marketplace bustled with activity. Crethian merchants sold their wares next to human traders. Velen children played with human children. Species that had been enemies now cooperated and even formed friendships. "I have to get back to work," Hannah said. "I am helping a Crethian family adjust to station life. Their children are having trouble making friends." "That is good work you are doing," Jiwoo told her. "Building bridges between species. That is how we make sure the war was not for nothing." She smiled and walked away, heading toward the counseling center. Jiwoo watched her go, thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still species that resented humanity's rise to power. But it was better. Measurably, demonstrably better. That evening, Jiwoo returned home to his apartment. His wife had prepared dinner. They sat together, eating and talking about their day. It was a normal evening, peaceful and quiet. The kind of evening that was only possible because humans had been willing to fight when fighting was necessary. Across the galaxy, Sungmin Choi stepped down from office after serving her term. In her farewell address, she spoke about the war and its aftermath. "We did something that had never been done before," she said. "We challenged the greatest power in the galaxy and won. Not through cruelty or conquest, but through determination and a refusal to accept injustice. We showed the galaxy what humanity values most. Not wealth or territory, but fairness and protection for those who cannot protect themselves." She paused, looking into the camera. "This is our legacy. This is what we give to future generations. A galaxy where might does not make right. Where every being, regardless of species or status, has equal protection under the law. Where no one can harm a child and escape justice." The address ended, but her words echoed across human space and beyond. They became part of human culture, taught to children in schools, referenced in speeches, remembered in ceremonies. The war that started with one child's injury had changed everything. Not just the balance of power in the galaxy, but the very nature of galactic civilization. Humanity had forced the Council to confront its own failures, to recognize that its system of hierarchy and privilege was fundamentally unjust, and in doing so, humanity had secured its place as not just another species, but as a moral force in galactic affairs. A species that would stand up for what was right, even against overwhelming odds. A species that meant what it said and backed up its words with action. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.